Hello, welcome to this podcast. My name's Mike Cornwell, and with me is, as usual, is my friend Tyler Comstock. And what we're doing today is we're going to go over sources sought on this podcast. And what we do, if you're not familiar with this, is we evaluate as part of our company, Leadership for Tech. We answer a lot of these government sources sought, and what we like to do is we like to pick one or two at random, and every Friday go and record a kind of live look at the sources sought to give you and anybody else kind of a very authentic look at these contract opportunities and these ideas that they're putting together. What we like to do is we like to come up with, if we can, 3 good things that we think are going on in this sources sought and 3 things that we think could improve. So after looking at all these sources sought, we get the opportunity to actually compare these different contract ideas, and we see what they're doing. And sometimes we get kind of surprised by the different things that are being asked for out there. So if you're a contract manager, you're a contract officer, or you have your own government contracting business in the technology space, then we think that this would be very helpful for you. So we're going to go ahead and dive into this one right here. So the one we're looking at today is part of this Naval Air Force Atlantic organization, which is it's a senior type command for all aircraft carriers and aviation assets used by the Atlantic Fleet. So as context, that's who this sources sought is for. And so we're going to move past some of this background stuff. I don't think it's super useful, but it's this Readiness Operations Center is what this sources sought is for. Okay, it specifically works to create a holistic approach to assess, improve, and properly organize the efforts that keep mission-capable aircraft carriers fully ready to deploy whenever the U.S. Navy needs them. Okay, this is their mission. I'm going to move past this stuff. Task description and technical specs. Okay, the U.S. Navy Programming Support Specialist. Government recommends 14 full-time and 1 part-time subject matter experts for the support listed below. Okay. Let's see here.
These are qualifications here.
Background objective. Enterprise performance to plan efforts and improving the overall civilian readiness in a full scale. By the way, stuff like this, like P2P, if you haven't figured it out, like whenever they're doing acronyms, they'll say what it is and then they'll put it in these parens. Every organization has their own acronyms, like a million times over. So don't think that like P2P is like, yes, this is their thing, performance to plan. ROC has been created in the wake of success of, okay. Don't know what this has to do with developers. Moving on. Individual programmers must meet most of the qualifications. A group collectively must meet all the qualifications. Okay. Contractors shall provide a minimum of 5 years experience and fluent in Microsoft products. Okay. Contractors shall have a minimum of 3 years experience in the fluent of Tableau, Jupyter, and Advana. Have an advanced ability to in utilizing common programming languages to include SQL, NoSQL, Python, Java, R, and Scala. I mean, I find it funny, nitpicking as a technology person, saying that programming languages is SQL and NoSQL. Those aren't programming languages. Those are database types. But that's fine. The contractor shall have a minimum of 5 years experience in developing, modifying, maintaining assigned programs, designing and implementing modifications. Okay. Contractor shall have a minimum of 5 years experience monitoring the operations of assigned programs, data collected, respond to problems, diagnosing. Okay. They're basically just saying here, you have experience doing software development.
Yep.
Contractors shall have a minimum of 5 years experience working on complex programs under close direction of higher level staff or supervisor. Okay. I don't know how you would do that otherwise. Contractors shall have minimum of 5 years experience in providing a full range of programming actions to produce several interrelated but different products from numerous and diverse data. They're not really saying anything here. The only thing I'm pulling away from this is that first one, you spent 5 years using a computer, because there's not a person who uses a computer that doesn't use those things. 3 years in this Tableau. This is really just saying that the most junior of developers you can have is 3 years experience. That's how I look at this. And then 5 years doing, I mean, I guess you could say well, they said some. Collectively they must have that, but some
most
could
of
do
their
that.
qualifications.
So it really says that, you have to have at least somebody on the team that's got 5 years experience doing development. All right, tasks. Okay, yep, gonna have to do senior, basic management, that first one. Contractors shall provide support collecting, analyze, organize, presenting data using naval aviation databases, naval surface databases. Okay, so they got a bunch of different databases. Shall provide advanced experience working in Microsoft Excel and Tableau related to importing daily, weekly, monthly data sources, running pre-programmed macros, and relaying issues experience development team. I don't know what they're asking there because there's a lot here. It sounds like to me like they probably had a bunch of power users build these Excel documents that does stuff that runs, like, for example, these pre-programmed macros and relying on issues of the development team. I think it almost looks to me like they're expecting the development team to maintain these macros.
Okay.
If that's the case, I would certainly recommend to them to get rid of that kind of stuff, because most people who do development have no experience using Excel macros, and it's like a good way to get started, but it is not a way to it's not a sustainable approach to doing any kind of workflow. And so what this is describing here is clearly they have some workflows that use Excel. We just recently, on one of our contracts, we actually went through and got rid of an entire process that uses Excel as a workflow, because Excel is a workflow for users, but it is not a system type technology. It does not integrate well at all with anything else. And so you have to create a lot of kludgy to make it work. So in this case, they then are taking like macros and then they're modifying this thing to do stuff. It is so difficult and to write and maintain and keep stuff like that working in Excel. And it also creates security vulnerabilities too by doing that, because you're now running any random program in an Excel.
Oh, wow.
Not
I didn't think of that part.
Anytime, see, Microsoft is notorious for this, where they intermix all these things that make their products very insecure. So they do things that they really should not do, mostly because someone thought it was a good idea. Then they just like rolled it out everywhere, and no one really ever thought it out. And so people then inherit it. So you got some power user here that used Excel. And by the way, I kind of started out sort of in that space 15 something years ago, where I was writing like Excel macros and stuff like that. We actually had like an Excel document delivered to us that was already processed. And then we took that and we put it into a database to do searches. That is an appropriate use for Excel, where you now have, a power user who's using it. So I use Excel, for example, every day on our farm, where I have our system and I pull the data out and then I use it to crunch the data. You can build systems that will crunch that data for you, but the nice thing about Excel is it's very flexible, so that you can do one-off analysis.
Okay.
But there's also limits to that. So the scale of data, in a lot of cases, I'd be concerned with what they got going on, that the scale of data would be inappropriate for Excel. So once you start getting into like a million rows, it runs terribly. So that's all I got to say about that. It's a lot, but the moment I see running pre-programmed macros, I can promise you, if we were to lead a project like this, we would probably pull away from those Excel macros as quickly as humanly possible. Like, perfect example, just one kind of micro comment on it. Like, you can't version control and you can't write tests on macros. You have a file. You could, but you'd have to. It's so kludgy. There's so much tooling that you lose because it's not development.
Okay.
Whereas in any normal software development shop, you have literally a repository that you put the code that can be managed, where people can have eyes on it. It can be tracked over time, so you can like roll back to some previous time that things worked. There's a whole thing about that. And then there's a process to like introducing these changes where people can have eyes on it, that you can then run automated tests against it to make sure that it didn't break other macros and scripts and stuff like that. So the moment I see pre-programmed macros, I go, you need to grow to like the next level. With 14 developers, by gosh, that ought to be really easy. Okay, the contractor shall validate outputs from data visualization tools. Tableau is described below with raw data source. Okay, I'm not entirely sure what they're saying there. But, all right, here we go. The contractor shall have a working understanding of Jupyter and Advana and be able to operate in this construct to adequately display information obtained in various charts, tableaus, and dashboards. I'm sure within a day to a week, you could get any developer to really understand this stuff. It doesn't take long. I've taught many people on Splunk, and Splunk is like a massive enterprise database searching aggregation type thing. Just as an example, there's no way that thing is more complicated than that. Contractor shall be responsible for gathering and analyzing data, organizing, documenting findings, studies, prepare recommendation, implementing new systems. Okay.
Already gone over.
Yeah, pretty much that number 5 is what I literally just said as well about we'd make a recommendation, probably move off a lot of this stuff. Collate information in meaningful reports and presentation materials. Contractors will provide metamorphose CVN raw data into viable, readable formats for display. I don't know what that is. That just sounds like you're going to take some data from something and turn it into a readable format display. Okay, got it. That's a usual developer thing. Shall design, build, test, blend, manage, optimize all types of CVN data, utilizing, you know what they probably said? I wonder if they said CVN above here somewhere.
It's probably in that first section.
Yeah.
I believe I saw it there.
Did you? Right here? Well, there's CVN. Okay, a mock.
Yeah, because it's already starting to mention it up here.
Yeah, see it there. CVN right here. Responsible for 5 nuclear power aircraft carriers, CVNs. Okay, well, there you go. I don't know what CVN stands for, but apparently it has something to do with submarines.
Yeah.
Or was it aircraft carriers? Did I totally misread that?
I believe it was. Almost positive that's what you just said. Yeah.
Nuclear powered aircraft carrier. I saw nuclear powered. I thought submarine. So it's data from aircraft carriers. Okay. Proficiency in coding languages is essential in this role. Well, it's a development thing. Contractors shall provide advanced ability to utilizing common programming languages to include SQL, NoSQL.
That section.
Got it.
Yep.
I like how to say Scala. Bro, that's old. That's like old. That's like 70s old. Just as for like your awareness.
Python's the only one I recognize.
Yeah. So you got Python,
and
you got Java. So R is a data scientist language. And then SQL is just structured query language. It's a usually product specific language that you would write database queries in. And like SQL databases is a particular kind and style of databases that are very rigid. And then a NoSQL database is basically not SQL. And so oftentimes, like probably the best example of NoSQL that I like is Mongo. And it fits so well with Node and JavaScript because it basically feels like you're just writing in Node or, in JavaScript in order to do these database queries. So Mongo's they call it a document store. It's basically just storing, they call it unstructured data. It's structured, but it may change from document to document where it may have additional fields that other ones don't have and stuff like that. Whereas a SQL database, you have to define all of that ahead of time. And it's like you've seen Excel. So it's like rows and columns, and the columns are very structured. So it's like, this is a string that, is a maximum of 50 characters. This is an integer. This is a small integer. So you have to define that. SQL databases have their purpose, but they've been overused for the last, 40, 50 years. NoSQL has been kind of a major shift and change where the velocity of the data and the changes of the data has basically made it that you need a different kind of management and querying style. So that's just kind of some background on the databases there. All right, key personnel. Okay, got it.
Yeah, and I mentioned travel time, but it was only a short.
Okay, so here's the period
amount.
of performance. So they basically have like a base year start date in July. Okay, interesting. And it ends 1 year, and then July the next year. So it's basically a year. It's 18 months. Okay. Hiring. I mean, I would hope that they would be looking at having more option years than that. That probably is just more specifically what they're doing. And I just mentioned it because if you go and hire 14 people for 18 months, that's a lot of hiring. A lot of hiring just to go, 18 months. But I get it. I mean, I've been on contracts that were 6 months long, like period. There's no concept of like an option or whatever. It's like at the end of 6 months, if you do well, you just continue to roll on. And this is clearly a long-term. This is clearly like a long-term project. This is supporting their regular operations. So this is this may be mentioning that, but okay, get this out of here. All right, travel may be required during the performance. All travel beyond a 50-year radius of the AIRLANT offices may be reimbursed according to joint travel regulations. That's the JTR.
Just within 50 miles is what.
Yeah, they don't mention it here, but the JTR itself is that's like a whole thing as it relates to the DoD. In a previous contract, we built a web application to actually fill out travel. The heck are they called? I'm trying to remember now. Basically, when you come back from doing travel as like a DoD person, you have to fill out all this paperwork, and basically it was a web app that does that, and it handled some of the rules, although not entirely, of the JTR. Where you click that and then you'll see this section, and if you make that, then it'll tell you can't be reimbursed for all that. The JTR is extremely complicated. Not that has anything to do with this. This just has to do if there's actual travel, then it's JTR.
Yeah, I understood this as like a travel's required, but I was thinking this is more remote. I didn't see anything that
TAD
like
location.
TAD.
So
I didn't know what TAD. I don't see that.
It's temporary active duty, and
Okay.
it's no. Yeah, I mean, normally I think of TAD, I think active duty. So let's see here. In order for the contract to successfully meet all requirements defined in the performance work, local travel shall be required, but as stated above, will not be reimbursed. Purpose of TAD, AirPack, estimated dates, semi-annually. What this looks like to me is if you were to do travel, this is the location you're going to travel to.
Yeah, that's how I read this.
Yeah, and it's funny because TAD is absolutely military terminology. So I'll say one bad thing for this is if you're trying to get contractors, like regular government contractors, using language like TAD they don't know what you're talking about. It's not, as far as I saw, it's not even mentioned here. And I'm assuming that's what TAD is, temporary active duty, because that is what DoD says when you're, for example, if you're, you're normally stationed at Camp Pendleton, California, and you're going to do a temporary active duty in Japan for like 6 months. They'll call it TAD.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
it's pretty common knowledge that TADs.
Yeah,
that's what it stands for.
If you have a military background, and why I know this is I was in the Marine Corps. So materials are not required in the performances. Therefore, no material. I guess what that is like databases and stuff, equipment.
Gotcha. Okay.
Overtime or extra regular time is not estimated for this. Yeah. This sounds like regular old software engineering. That's what I'm seeing. And just general operations support.
You do need a secret.
Yep. Government will provide necessary computer workstation system access. Okay. That's good to know. Product deliverables. Okay. Okay.
No, I'm not entirely sure what all the.
Okay, I see here. They want these as
are.
part of their normal deliverables. So there's a monthly report, a travel report, a CAC report. I don't know what CAC is. Did I mention here? I don't know what that one is. As identified in the base contract. Okay, maybe we missed it. Yeah, so this is basically just saying you know the people who are doing the management, like a program manager, would basically create and assemble these reports and then send them out.
I gotcha.
That's what this is. Yeah,
I see.
completion of all the work of the calendar month. You know what we're not seeing here?
What's that?
Are we halfway through?
Yeah, it's only like 10 pages.
I'm gonna scan this real quick and just see. Okay, we got some security related stuff. Okay.
It's just holidays.
Yeah, holidays. Quality program. Okay, we'll go back and we'll look at this, but I did want to see citizenship. Okay, now we're talking about the kinds of person that you can hire. Okay, what I didn't see here, and I would personally say that it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. Some people may not. I didn't see anything about micromanagement of software team. I actually think that this is a much better way of going about. This is like specifically, here's like the kinds of deliverables that we're looking for. It's vague enough that, they're going to use this as like, this is a services contract. You're providing services to them, and you as a contractor make it happen. These are the various kinds of things. Like, this is the background of what it is, but it's pretty clear to me. They're not anticipating. This is another thumbs up. They're not anticipating that the people that are being hired by the contractor, they're not fooling themselves thinking that they are experts at nuclear powered aircraft carrier data or yada, yada, yada. That's not that. I'm not reading that anywhere in this, that they have this, that they've isolated this enough to go like, hey, you're doing the technology and you're going to be helping to support the mission stuff, but we're not expecting you to be super experts on mission. Some places they do expect that, and what they don't realize is the people that get hired have no mission experience. It's just the name of the game on doing this kind of stuff. But the question is whether or not you can do the technology, because the mission stuff can be handled by other people. You can never, the technology stuff cannot be handled by people who can't do technology. You just saw that. Perfect example is something that was happening just before this. Tyler was running into issues with using ChatGPT, and then when I saw what he was doing, it just made sense to me.
And
that's because I'm a computer person, and I know how they try to make these things simple and easy to use, but to actually use computers to their fullest extent, it requires a technologist.
Yep.
Somebody who knows about computers. They know about nitnoid stuff of text versus PDF versus Word documents. If you had to start, for example, from scratch with some application that it's like, hey, I need you to take text, I need you to take PDF. I'm going to take a big breath in, because that's a lot. You have to integrate what's called OCR, like document reading technologies, to be able to pull that stuff out. And only recently has machine learning technologies, which are, and I just call it correctly rather than AI, machine learning technologies, to be able to read this kind of this is truly unstructured data. It looks very structured, but from a computer standpoint, this is meaningless.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's where OCR, which is conversion of some random document into a text type format. That's what OCR is. It's although OCR can also be literally taking a physical document and then digitizing it. But anyways, long story short, a technologist is actually the person that can make these things happen, and not a mission person. I see this every single day. What happens when mission people are running too much of the technology, they end up getting a lot less. I was having a massive rant about this yesterday to a Scrum Master that I work with, that the contract that we're on has been hampered by the fact that the people who are running it really micromanage the technology aspects, and they never really stop to think about the activities that one of the teams is doing. And one of the teams, which is supposed to be a technology team, they are not. They're actually power users who have been elevated a little bit higher than a power user. Okay. And so their solutions is, let me grab this thing off the shelf. Well, 5 years later, this thing off the shelf was never designed to do what they're doing. So they're trying to do this massive enterprise test, and the tool that they're using to do the testing is made for tests that are about that big. Not this big, not a nano test, but about that big. And they're doing tests that are massive. And they're using the wrong tool.
Gotcha.
A technologist would have recognized that from the beginning of what are we doing here? Okay, we need a system to actually handle this kind of stuff. So tests that are a lot more complex than I'm just going to poke this and I'm just going to look at the output.
The way and one thing I knew you'd like about this is that lack of sandbagging, micromanaging. I know that with you, as Mike mentioned, Leadership for Tech is the name of the company. Leadership is huge for Mike, and I knew with this Sources Sought, it's like, here's what we want, you do it. And I know you really enjoy that because it's like, hey, we will get you way more effective. Like that, we're gonna get you on the level of effectiveness you didn't even know was
This is the
possible.
kind of stuff, and I saw multiple statements about this. Again, I'm seeing expansion. I'm seeing, hey, we want the contractor to come up with ideas that take us to the next level.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that, not how do I control these contractors so that this thing works, which doesn't work, never works. And so it's funny because the other one felt a little more innovative, but then you see that kind of stuff, you're like, there's going to be no innovation out of this. This is going to be stifled out. This has a lot of opportunities to take to the next level.
Yeah, so, we're not even talking efficiency. We're talking being just plain, flat out effective in what you're doing.
Effective.
Way more effective than
effective.
The field of software engineering. I mean, that's how I saw this, at least. I was like, this is a freedom one. Like, take it and build this thing up.
So, okay, personnel performing on this requires secret clearance prior to the start of work. Personnel performing classified work or requiring access to classified materials under SAS must meet U.S. citizen, possess a DoD security clearance. So, I would say somewhat hesitant to this, and it's mostly just somewhat lack of experience on my part. I've had a top secret clearance since I was 18 years old. The only experience I have ever had were in top secret required, like you required at least having a top secret, not that you handled top secret. Most DoD type stuff is always secret. That's one of the biggest things. Like never was, when I was in the Marine Corps, the only time I ever was touching top secret systems was when I was working at MCIA, which is the intelligence agency for the Marine Corps. Or when I was kind of back in the rear in Afghanistan and like Kandahar, which I know many people aren't going to think Kandahar is in the rear, but Kandahar or like Bagram. However, out in the field, they have like secret systems and stuff like that. So my lack of kind of experience here is how to actually get people with secret clearances. My hesitation with something like this is the problem is I could go throw people at a contract like this, but they have top secret clearances. And so they absolutely fill this role. But the question I have, and maybe they can assist us with this, is what happens to these people's top secret clearances? Because generally in a situation like this, maybe this would be a good question to go and ask them directly, is whether or not they could actually hold people at a top secret clearance. Oftentimes, again, total speculation on this part, if they were to take this job, they would lose their top secret clearance.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Oh.
That's my reading and understanding of it, because you have the top secret clearance so long as you're filling a role that is rated that will require that. So if this is that, you would only be able to hire secret clearances. Now, I'll admit, I don't know the market for personnel fully enough to know whether or not I think there's more people with top secret clearances than there are with secret clearances in terms of contract personnel. But I don't know that. I also don't know the ease or not ease of getting somebody a secret clearance. I mean, I know a little bit more about the top secret process than that, which is it is complicated to get somebody a top secret clearance. Maybe a secret clearance would be easier. Don't know, but those are just kind of my thoughts.
Listen, I would understand you wouldn't want to lose that if you, I mean,
that's the problem.
Yeah, I wouldn't want.
In fact, there'd be a lot more people if they can, for example, hold somebody with a top secret clearance. Then it's no problem. I mean, for example, I worked at JSOC, which is DoD. However, to be in their J6, it required having a top secret clearance. But everywhere else on that base, their base did not require that. Okay. So to work at their accounting office, which is the one that I worked at in order to do the travel, you only need a secret clearance to be in there.
Okay.
But in order to be at the J6, who I was actually hired by, you have to have a top secret clearance. So that's how that thing worked out. So it's possible, for example, that a similar kind of deal with this could work out. I don't know. But it's just something for us to keep in consideration of that clearance thing is always a conversation that happens all the time with government stuff. Just so you know.
Okay.
It's always a thing. All right, so let's move past this.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, government mandated training. There's always that.
No, I mean, like, if you're not in that position, top secret position, you lose. I wasn't. Okay.
Yeah, it may be that you don't lose it, but becomes inactive or something. For sure.
Yeah, inactive.
You'll lose your security caveats. We've talked about that. So in TS you have an SCI. You'll have different caveats to give you access to like geo information or like human information, and the specific role will define which one of those caveats you have access to. And every time you leave a position and go to a different one, you are read off that program, so you lose those caveats. You still maintain your top secret clearance, but then you move into the next place, and then they read you back on with the different caveats that you need for that specific role.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. I got it.
So, okay, all products, documentation, government furnished ADP. Yep, okay. Duties and responsibilities. The finding of the core is not authorized to take any action directly or indirectly result in a change in the cost, price, quantity. Okay. Shall process a visit request to these guys. Okay, so that's basically saying that anytime you need to bring somebody there, you go through these guys. Okay. Obtaining clearance by a shipyard does not automatically grant contractor access to the ship. I see. Yeah, this makes sense. They're basically, there's a bunch of computers that are running on ships. And if you were to need to go onto the ship, you basically have to go through these guys in order to do that. That's all fine.
Gotcha.
I doubt the place or performance and stuff is on a ship. If you didn't know this, the Navy, where they go to work when they're like back home is actually on the ship.
I did not know that. Okay.
Which is, it was always like mind blowing to me. So
really?
Yes. So when they go to work, they leave their home and they drive to work, they park in a parking lot, and then they walk onto a ship.
Interesting. Just like parked offshore. Okay.
They're buildings.
Yeah.
And so the positive to that is when they go and deploy, they take their building with them.
It's pretty cool, actually. If you really think about it.
It's kind of interesting. So, but what's nice about that is they have a deep familiarity with the building that they're on, versus they're leaving and they're going in an unknown place.
Actually, a really big advantage.
Yeah, it keeps things. I assume it means that things stay very well. They have very well oiled processes, and they have very high efficiency in what they do. Okay, let's see here. Okay, here we go. Task duties, completion, funds, the United States, overseeing the work of the federal employees, providing direct personnel set forth in Part 7.5 of the FAR. Okay, so we're definitely dealing with FAR stuff here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Contractor shall develop personnel work schedules to ensure all tasks described in PWS are performed within a standard 40-hour week. Yeah, okay, got it. For contractor personnel assigned by the contractor to the government facility, services shall be provided in accordance with yada, yada, yada. So in other words, unlike some of the other things, they're kind of very clear that there's this facility that you would be working at. You got your core hours here. May not begin their work day prior to 6 a.m. nor end their work day after 6. Well, that's kind of interesting. I wonder if that mostly has to do with their facility hours. I don't know, but I definitely know that there's people out there, people who are my short list to bring on that actually do work outside those hours. A guy I know would come to work at 3 a.m. And he would get done, the amount of work that he would get done would rival me. And that's saying a lot.
Wow,
I'll never forget. I never forget. I was briefing like, hey, in order for us to like redo this other system over here, it's probably going to take us 3 to 6 months. He showed up, well, not to rewrite it, but to wrap it. It was written in Java, and we wanted to put it, basically servitize it and provide it in a node platform. And I started to work on some of this, and I was like, this is probably going to take like 3 to 6 months, to be perfectly fair. I told him about working on it. I'm like, just take a look at it and give me like a good estimate. So instead of doing that, he just did all the work. He showed up one morning, and he had already completed about 60% of it. And the next day, he completed like another 80 or 90% of it. So it's like that guy works at 3 a.m. And the reason why he works at 3 a.m. is because he can bang out all the work. So that's something, maybe I'll say that's kind of a downer. I don't know if there may be some specifics around that of how their building operates. So, you know, and that is what it is. But I'll definitely say that there are people out there who are they're not on the speaking crew. They're not on the presentation crew. They're on the production crew. And then they come in and they want no politics. They just want to bang the stuff out.
I've met a lot of people who are night owls that like work through the night and do, you know,
there's definitely
incredible things.
I definitely know a guy who's working on some contracts past 6 o'clock. I'm not finding a lot of people who are high performers that are working on a contract past 6. Now, for sure, I have done 80 to 120 hour weeks on a contract, and I was definitely working till 10 p.m. That was telework. That was not in a building.
Gotcha.
Okay, here we go. Flex work schedules. Yep. Wishing to routinely provide services outside normal hours must provide valid justification. Well, there they go. I didn't read it. So what he would say is, I want to beat all the traffic. Okay. You know, especially if you're talking about up in the Northern Virginia area, you want to beat all the traffic. That's what a lot of people do. Like I used to go, for example, I would show up on this contract many years ago in Tyson's Corner coming from Fredericksburg. I'd leave my house at 4 a.m. So I could get there at 5.
You kind of have to.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And that was still, there was full traffic, but it wasn't stopped. Yeah. Okay. So they got a bunch of, holidays. Okay. Yeah, that's them. Government basically owns it. Okay. There's not really much to say here. Yeah, it's basically saying there's not privacy if you're dealing with a government program. Okay, yep. It's saying make things of quality, which that is my specialty. Okay. Oh, here we go. As a minimum, the contractor shall ensure a representative with signature authority. Oh, okay. I see. He's basically saying we need to have a representative who has the ability to sign contracts within 1 hour commute of the job site. Permission to visit whenever contractor personnel are required to perform work on board of a ship.
Which that relates back to the California area too, correct? That's where it's the only place I've seen if you were to travel. Where would that be?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, you said within 1 hour of commute of the job site.
Yeah, that's the norm. That's the normal one. This is like, for example, this like boarding a ship. I'm sure that is over in Cal. That's the San Diego.
That was more so like this facility thing being
able to sign. I don't think that has anything to do with this San Diego thing.
Okay, got it. I wasn't sure because it's the only place I've even seen.
Okay, here we go. Has it actually said where the job is located? Didn't it say Springfield? No, that was a different one.
No, that was a different one. That's what I'm saying. The only actual, like, physical place I've seen mentioned on here is California.
That's kind of interesting.
Maybe I've missed it, but I don't think so.
It was saying in the concept TAD for unclassified visits. Yeah, okay. Yeah, got to have a citizenship. Minimum level of classification. Got to have, like, a badge. Comply with security requirements. Contractor shall submit a list of persons employed on the contract within 14 days after award of the contract. The list is in addition to the shown in paragraphs above. The list shall also include a description. That's interesting.
So you have 2 weeks to get everybody.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that is not what it says.
Okay, so let me.
What it's saying is you have to give them a list of people that are employed on the contract within 14 days. It does not say you need to hire all 14 people within that 14 days.
Gotcha, I read it wrong. Okay.
Contractor is responsible for providing minimum personnel, proper education, training, to meet the acceptable industry standards below. Effective work with civilian military personnel at any time, sure as qualifications are met. Okay, that's it.
Yep, that's the end of it.
What kind of questions do you got? 757, by the way, that is a Virginia number. Just FYI.
Yes. Yeah, my uncle's in Virginia.
Yeah, that's all Virginia.
Okay, well then there you go. There's another
Yeah.
another way to look at that. Then. I mean, we kind of answered them throughout, but I am going to ask about the top secret.
Yeah, security stuff.
That's the biggest thing that comes to my mind about
security's
asking.
going to constantly come up. It's going.
Yeah, but I didn't really see anything any more like concern on this other than knowing what happens to those that get hired if they have that top secret. Can they still hold it?
Yeah.
We answered pretty much everything else that I had questions about. So
Cool.
It's pretty straightforward. I mean,
I thought so.
I think the biggest thing is them being willing to maybe, let's update. Let's get more effective. Let's get to the next level. That's how I see this.
Yeah.
Maybe they're willing to do that. I don't know. You never know with these. This is just,
I mean,
a lot of times research is what these are in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Who's available? What can they do? So, like, what are their capabilities?
I do find it, interesting as part of seeing all these different sources sought from the different departments. You could definitely see a little bit more of what's in the mind of the person who's going and putting these things out. This feels this is just what it is. There it is. Whereas other ones we've seen, they're very, you could see the chip on the shoulder.
Yeah.
I don't see that here. This looks like they want some business done. This is like a very straightforward, hey, we're doing this stuff with aircraft carriers. There's like a bunch of data. You got to integrate a bunch of data. There's like operations and stuff that's happening. If we need you to come on the ship, we might need you to come for 1 to 5 days or something like that. That's what this looks like to me.
It lets the experts do what they do.
Yeah,
expertly.
much.
I mean, that's how I see it.
And the only thing with the technologies, it's actually very minimal. It's clear to me there's something going on with Excel, and there's some databases and stuff, but it's like it looks like there's user workflows that are going on that relate to analyzing data and seeing data happen. Maybe it's like ship movements, maybe it's like communications, maybe it's like radar data. It's not clear from here what that stuff is. It could be any and all that kind of stuff. It does. I'm kind of curious what this was. It CNV, CVN data is.
Those
here we go.
Aircraft carriers.
Yeah. The RC supports unique readiness requirements and efficiently execute measurable performance improvements in CVN readiness and support extreme complexity of CVN sustainment and maintenance. I like how they say that, because that gives you a really good understanding that to run a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, it has extreme complex sustainment and maintenance of these things. And I think that's part of this. It looks like there's a lot of aggregating data. I mean, depending on what it is, I'd maybe recommend something like Splunk, for example. Splunk is a fantastic tool for bringing all sorts of data sources in. You can plug them into the different ones. They come in. You have a central place to query. So I don't like the idea of someone having to touch SQL and NoSQL. Right out of the gate, you're talking two completely different paradigms of doing querying, and versus you take a single database that can go out to it and write all those queries there. You can then do things like rapidly build dashboards and capabilities to do analysis, to include putting in like machine learning and AI kind of stuff is kind of built into those kind of things. There's no mention of that kind of stuff, but could be pretty useful, depending on what it is. Mm. But I think that's all we got. And if you like this kind of thing, we'd certainly want to see your comments. Leadership for Tech, we're our two things, leadership and technology. It's in the name. Our background is in the DoD and intelligence space. And if you're interested in working with us, just reach out, and we'd love to hear from you. Until such time, we'll see you. Bye.